shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Edventures in Tech podcast, talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
Back and better. This is episode 53 of the Adventures in Tech podcast. This is Andrew, along with...
This is Dan.
And that's it. And we are back and excited to be restarting the podcast. It's been a little while, but definitely back on the rails, I should say, right, Dan? Because typically we're off the rails. It's been quite a journey for us, with a little break, so to speak. But we are back, and we are excited that you are here to join us. Of course, if you like the content, please help us out by providing feedback and rating on wherever you download your podcast from. We greatly appreciate your support. Dan, let's talk a little bit about classroom updates. It's been a while, so what do you got going on?
Trying to recap from everything we have going on. It's been a while since we've been here.
Yeah.
Kind of getting myself set. Had a little Goldilocks moment with my seating.
Get rid of the rust.
With my seating arrangement and microphones, and Andrew ripping my head off with the headphones. But we're back. As far as classroom updates go, I think Shear's been pretty good so far. I think we've been actively involved in some really good projects going on with different classes, different grade levels, different objectives, different outcomes. I think a lot of focus we've been putting on is with everything, as it's always been going with AI. But yeah, I think things have kind of settled down with the idea of AI and its usefulness and its purpose and how it can be utilized. So I think it's been great working with teachers with an instructional lens on AI in order to help them as basically content creators for designing their differentiated learning experiences.
Yeah, the AI has been one big component that we've really delved, 100% in. I know that's been a hot topic and a hot button in the world of education. We've also been able to utilize a lot of Canva with students. The VR has really taken off to exponential level of usage as we try to create those unique experiences for the students. So a lot's been going on and a lot more to come as well. Let's talk some news updates, in regards to things that are coming up. The big one is locally, NiceGate will be kicking off in a new location on this Saturday, November 23rd. We will be there. There will be a ton of episodes recorded. We will be chatting with different vendors to give you perspectives on things, different educators from all across the state, because this is the state conference, and it is in a new area. It's in Verona, New York. We're not going to Rochester. So it'll be in right outside Syracuse, right, Dan?
Yep.
So we'll be there. It's being held at Turning Stone Casino, Resort, Convention Center, et cetera, their whole property. So that's the big one, and you'll be hearing from us a lot there with a lot of special guests. We also have some other episodes with other special guests planned, in the coming weeks. What else is coming on is Ditch Summit. So Matt Miller will be, releasing his Ditch Summit. It'll be launching on December 11th, and it'll run through January 5th of 25. If you have not signed up or taken part in the Ditch Summit, it's definitely worthwhile. I know, Dan, you've been on it almost every day as the summit releases.
There's just such a wide variety of resources and perspectives, and it's really a great thing that he's put together for years.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of great speakers, a lot of great things. He gives away a ton of free stuff, too. And I know all teachers and educators alike enjoy free swag, right? And then the big national conference that's the most up-to-date coming one, I should say, is FETC, Future Educational Technology Conference. That'll be held at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida, and that will kick off, I think I have the wrong dates. I believe it's January 13th. Is correct this year through the 16th is where it is. So if you haven't, there's free expo passes. So if you want to go or you're locally and you just want to go to check out the convention center, those are free for educators. And then there's the session pass as well. And if you have a team going, anything 3 or more people, there is discounted rates. So that is something you definitely want to check out. Comparable to ISTE, we've had some colleagues of ours go, and they actually enjoyed FETC better than ISTE, I think, because, especially if you're in the world of ed tech, it is really the focus is on educational technology. So January 13th, we'll wrap up on the 16th for FETC in Orlando this year. So definitely something to check out. So, Dan, a lot of news has come out And I know it's been crazy, and a lot of it's AI based. But as we start looking at different things of what Google has released, there's a lot.
There is a lot.
And there's things that I think are, I don't want to say not as relative. Like, I think, everybody's fully beyond. There's not hybrid teaching in the sense anymore. They do continually make a ton of updates to Google Meet that we get, but these are updates that, although great, not really necessary for, for the learning component with student facing. So it's great for video conferencing, and they continue to evolve that product. I just don't think it's being utilized as much as it was during the pandemic.
I think one area where I feel they've been giving more attention to lately has been Google Classroom.
Yeah.
And some of the things you can do within the Google Classroom gradebook, especially when you're integrating with your LMS, your student information system, and syncing things back and forth. But they've also done some new update features, which makes it a lot easier to differentiate learning in the classroom. So I know one new feature that came out this year was the ability to create groups within your Google Classroom rosters.
Small groups,
that's So you can create small groups, and they're all adjustable over time, but then you can assign things directly out to small groups and support the learning that way. So I think that was a nice feature that they put into it. Yeah,
it really was an efficiency and time saver, because what we used to do is create the same assignment 5 times for each group.
Yeah.
So now you can assign your groups, as needed and as often as possible, and you can have as many groups as possible, and you can just, based on project-based learning, it's really a key component as students take on different roles. That's the other thing. The other big one, Dan, that just released, which is another huge time saver that I know you've already been able to experience and play around with, was in the gradebook. Why don't you elaborate and tell everybody about this one? If they haven't seen it yet, it should be coming.
So one of the new features they have in the gradebook, which I know a lot of people have been asking for. I know I always hit that question mark and give my feedback all the time. But they did institute, that's rolling out, I guess, is a new grade all feature. So a lot of times I know teachers are not always having students submit their work digitally. They're still utilizing the Google Classroom gradebook, which makes perfect sense. But now you're able to go into the gradebook next to an assignment, hit the 3 dots, and then mass grade an entry. So I saw that pop up like a week or so ago, and I was pretty excited to see that.
Yeah, it's another thing that's just going to save educators time, especially depending upon your content area. It's going to make things more seamless and easy. And I will say, like Dan said, he always hits that question mark. Google does listen to teachers' feedback. They want to make sure the product is as seamless and easy for educators to use to get the best experience out of it. That's really, we think of how far it's come since, launching with Google Chromebooks, Art said recently was 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we think of how much has evolved through a pandemic and how efficiency, has come, and where these kids are going to need to be with how the introduction of AI just about 2 years ago and how much that has changed the educational landscape, which I'm sure we're going to have a lot of conversations about up at NICEGATE's annual conference. But those are the two main things. A couple other things. Google Calendar keeps getting like a facelift, with their Google Material Design 3. So different buttons, dialogues, and sidebars. You can now use dark mode, which, if you like the not bright blue light kind of speak, that can definitely, work as well. Dan and I were actually just talking about Google Calendar, Sheets, Docs, and the AI integration. Now, Gemini, as always, please check with your tech directors and make sure you're following education law for your state and everything. But Gemini is a product that they're now including in the core Google Workspace group. However, the caveat is it still needs to be 18 plus.
It still does. And Google's doing a lot with its Gemini for its education domains. And you might see Gemini embedded in your personal Google accounts everywhere you go now, but in your education domains, I think there's different requirements to be able to have it used. So that's something you should definitely check with your tech directors. But it's just another example of how all these AI platforms are being integrated into every productivity tool that's out there. And I think that's good in a lot of different ways. I think there's also some challenges to it as well, as you see it popping up everywhere. So I think that's another topic for another discussion. But yeah, I think Gemini coming into the space, looking at the Google blogs and everything, they are having student-facing components of Gemini that would be coming into the Google Workspace. But again, that's all at different price tiers and different things that may go beyond what your district is subscribing to.
Right, and they keep, we looked at the, where we're getting a lot of our updates is from the workspaceupdates.googleblog.com, where they're announcing whether it's a rapid release, schedule release, and so forth, but Gemini and Google Docs to create unique images for documents. All of these things are coming. If you have not seen them, the rollout pace, rapid release it was happening right away, but schedule will start in mid-December, and of course it is based on what you are. So whether you're education premium, or all of them, and Gemini itself. So those are things that, as things evolve, what will be included and what won't be is going to be, a key component. The one thing that Dan and I have been kind of looking at and kind of waiting for was the general availability of Google Vids, right?
Yeah.
Which is an AI-powered video creation app for work to help tell stories across your organization. Now, we don't know what it's going to actually kind of look like. We know it's just their latest productivity app in Google Workspace products, and it'll be an AI-powered video creation app for work designed to help teams, in learning and development, project ops, marketing. You can tell all kinds of engaging stories, through video. Now, this is great for those higher level classes, those higher level thinking skills, those teamworks. They're able to create these videos and share updates and announcements and just kind of market themselves in a different way if it's something that lends to, for the students' experience as well. So it's another option. I don't know how it's going to, I don't want to say mirror Screencastify.
I think it's I don't know how it's going to mirror. I think it is a new screencasting tool, but it's integrating AI into the development of the actual video layout.
Right.
I'm curious to get around playing with it. Haven't seen the opportunity to do that yet, but I think that is something that could be really beneficial. But you did, I know it's we didn't have this in our agenda right now, but you did bring up Screencastify.
Yeah.
And they've made a number of updates to their platform.
They have to compete with what Google Vids and everything is doing and coming out. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Sometimes I feel like they maybe moved a little too quick
Right.
because there was just a lot happening at once. But what they're putting in is some really good features into your Screencastify, whether you're working with your own videos and your own content, or even using their premium library to make more interactivity into YouTube videos.
Yeah.
But generally, so if people haven't noticed yet, they've added some AI assistance into the video production of your own Screencastify videos. So if you create a video and you run the AI assistant, it's going to do a number of different things for you. It's going to, automatically add captions to your video, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember struggling, so many years past to add captioning through YouTube, and it was never that easy to do. But that's the AI assistant Screencastify can do that is really wonderful, because it's important to have closed captioning to your videos. There's a lot of different needs that students have where that closed captioning is really beneficial. What's cool with their closed captioning is when students are watching the video back, the viewer has control over what language the closed captioning comes in. So there's a built-in translation feature. The AI assistant will also title your video, summarize your video, put out the key points, which I think is good. And then they also have a new AI voiceover feature that has come out, which will actually give you an AI translation of a voice over your video. So it's pretty cool.
And creepy.
And creepy.
To a degree. But, the Screencastify component is important because, as Dan was mentioning, we're looking at different, every school district across the country always has a budget to kind of, there's constraints every year, wherever the funding may come from. Screencastify, if it's something that is a usable product in your district, there are a lot of free 99 features, and there are some paid ones based on licensing. But it also has the videos that it can bring in, like you were just mentioning, and then how to integrate that with Google Classroom, again, makes things more efficient and seamless, which is, I think, wildly popular in that regard.
One more thing on the Screencastify front is the Screencastify Submit. Been working with that a lot more. Some for my own personal work that I do, and also working with teachers. So it's proven to be a pretty adequate fill-in for Flipgrid or Flip, or the application formerly around as Flip, since
whatever it's called now,
since Microsoft,
owned by Microsoft, right?
Since Microsoft took it away from the general public. I don't know if they sunsetted it for its teams, but I thought that was a great tool while it lasted.
It was.
But Submit will allow for that interactive video response platform that would be very similar to a Flip experience.
That is a key workaround, for losing Flipgrid, like we were, like Dan was just mentioning. That is important in that regard. That can kind of help you. It's not going to mimic exactly, but again, it's just finding the correct tool for what you're trying to accomplish with your students is the key there. Google Vids, we'll see what comes of it and how it will kind of compare to Screencastify itself. They do have a bunch of different things that we're kind of waiting on. And of course, they have that AI powered features with the Help Me Create and the voiceovers. So like Dan said, Screencastify, I want to say, is ahead of the curve a little bit. But you kind of have to be with this roller coaster ride of AI. And it did say that they're going the whole Help Me Create component of that will be available through the end of 2025. And then there's going to be some usage limits for those AI powered features that could begin in 2026. Now, where that goes, who knows? That could change a million times, just like Google changing licensing of Chromebook updates. Right. So there's a lot. The other thing that I wanted to mention, Dan, I know because it just came to my mind, is we got to talk a little bit about Padlet and how they've completely enhanced, not Padlet itself, but now it's called Sandbox.
Right, the new Sandbox. So that's they put in the Padlet Sandbox, which is like an interactive whiteboard. Sounds pretty familiar for those of you who love Jamboard, like Andrew and myself, and just am still bitter that they took away, that Google sunsetted that product. I really wish I knew why they did that.
I think it's because it was so tied into the Jamboard hardware itself that they were. Listen, I'm just saying. I think this is just my opinion. We don't have the the bat phone to call Google and ask.
Though some think we do. But.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll talk to people up at Nicegate, but I feel like that's why, because it was. I don't understand why they would get rid of it. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm at a loss for that because it was such a useful product,
and there wasn't much to it, which made it great.
Exactly. It was simple, easy use for everybody.
But that collaborative workspace and those interactive activities, definitely think you need to. There's a learning curve to Sandbox for Padlet, but I think that's something worth exploring. Padlet 2 has really grown. I think there's a lot of new feature in the way it allows students to interact on that platform. For those of you that are not familiar with Padlet, it's an online collaboration space, much like Jamboard was, where you can post notes, you can do comments, you can put links, you can embed videos. They have AI features in there that I think are really good to introducing students on how AI and machine learning works.
Yep.
I think it's a good, safe space to explore that. And I like all it has to offer. Like Padlet, like anything else, it's freemium. You get your free, and then your paid tiers, you're going to get a lot more and a lot more flexibility with it. But Padlet is something, it always comes in waves for me. Padlet goes back a long way. This isn't a new flash in the pan thing. We're going back probably a decade or so.
Yeah,
at least,
right? At least, right?
For Padlet going in, and I've worked with it, and it comes in waves. I'm in it all the time, and then I'm out of it, but then I'm back in it. I've been using it as my substitution for Jamboard, and it's worked out really well.
And that's what they kind of market it as the Jamboard alternative. So they're trying to find the niche in that space in regards to it. You do get free. When you say you get free, you only get 3, right? Three Padlets. 2-minute video recordings, 5-minute audio recordings, where you get to try it out and use it. But then if you're using a Padlet and Sandbox, you can export them as PDFs and then delete them and then still use other ones. So 3, and when we say Padlets, that's where the students can actually access and put the stuff on there.
Yeah.
Right? So depending on how often of a tool, you will determine your own value if it's actually worth maybe a purchase of a license, which
I think they do individual licenses.
they do. I'm looking. So if you wanted a gold membership, it's $6.99 a month or $69.99 a year, which gives you 20 Padlets, 100 megabyte uploads, 5-minute video recordings, 10-minute audio. So there's a lot of different things, and it obviously goes up from there. Whether it's Platinum Team, Classroom, and School. So there's a lot of different things. If you see the value of it, that's great. Then you can absolutely use it. But again, they're saying a Jamboard alternative. People talked about Fig Jam. It's there. Is the best way for me to put it.
Fig Jam is there.
It's
Padlet
there.
is much better at what it
much
does.
more robust, exactly,
and much easier to access and maintain.
So definitely check out Padlet and Sandbox and kind of play around with it. See if it's something that could be useful for you, your students, and in your actual teaching methodologies as you keep to move on. So, all right.
Well, no, we'll save it for another one. But there's one thing, we'll put it down, but it just came to my mind, is talking about the new AI features in ThingLink.
Oh, yeah.
You got some cool scenario builders.
I think we talk about that with VR. Let's put that in an episode.
Yeah, there's a new one where it'll take your content and VR create interactive experiences. But I wanted to go there. I just thought of it, but no.
We got to stay on the rails.
Maybe that'll tease someone into to want to listen to another episode.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you know what? VR is going to be a hot topic up at Nice Gate, so I'm sure we could bring it up then.
I think so. I think there's a lot of new companies coming out in the AR, VR.
Yeah.
I think we've still been using Class VR. It's been taking off. People see me rolling those carts all over the place. Though, if anyone from Class VR listens to it, make your handles like 2 inches too longer.
It's for Oompa Loompas.
And I'm not tall either, but I'm struggling with that. But
That's true.
There's some really cool tools coming out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. And we'll talk about the different things that we'll see on the exhibit floor and what kind of products and vendors are actually at Nice Gate and hopefully FETC as well. And then we can definitely move on from there. So lots to talk about with VR. I do want to move on to one of our favorite people, one of our favorite authors, and that is AJ Giuliani, right? So he wrote an article recently regarding, there's fear. There's people that are afraid of AI, and they don't even know they're using AI. And when we say AI, we mean the generative AI component, right? And then there's people that have FOMO. So there's a difference between fear and FOMO. Right? The fear is you don't want to do anything. You're like hunkered down in a bunker and, your thought process is what it is. Fine. And then you have FOMO, where there's the people that are the fear of missing out and they download every app and they got to use every tool as quickly as possible. And then it just becomes kind of information overload and overwhelmed. So think about fear or FOMO and identify yourself with which one you're going to be, right? So when we talk about the benefits of artificial intelligence learning tools, whether it's the calculator, we know how learning can be impacted by technology. It's pretty powerful. I think we've all seen that. We've all been through a lot over the last couple of years, but in general, the evolutions of AI helping and this generative AI component that AJ starts talking about is how it shifts from one-size-fits-all approaches to the personalized learning experiences that, Dan, I don't know how many times we've said that, but those AI-powered learning tools aim to improve the learning outcomes and provide those personalized experiences for our students. Mm-hmm. It does, AI itself kind of takes the algorithm component that I know we're getting into the nitty gritty of things, and it learns adaptively with machine learning and natural language processing to really help the students and the teacher. We use a specific AI tool. We've done a lot with Brisk, specifically in our district and briskteaching.com. And the one part of the efficiency component, everybody's loving it, right? To kind of just give you that once glance over. And we always refer back to the rule, the 80-20 rule. 80% AI will do the work, 20% you still got to check it and make sure that it's authentic and correct, right? So the students can now use those AI tools, specifically when we think of all what School AI and Brisk Boost, to really have a tutor, so to speak, even though it's a chatbot. And I refer back to what you say, Dan, is because you're always saying learning does not stop at the door.
Right.
So, this article that AJ has put on is how AI tools are absolutely transforming learning environments to promote that personalized experience, enhancing teacher efficiency. So if you've not delved into that world yet, it's something to kind of dip your toe in the water because really the big thing is it's not going away.
It's not going away, and there has to be that. You really have to take it as an overall view of what AI can do for you as a teacher. So the one thing that I've really been just thinking about is, at first when it came out and all the things and the ethics, and we still have all those situations out there. But I've been able to compartmentalize the different ways that I can use it, and being able to understand that I can use different AI platforms in order to get my image, not my image, but my vision of what I'd like to create and what I know based on my years as a teacher, my knowledge of pedagogy, my different things, to create the resources that will best support my students.
Absolutely.
And being able to have an AI co-pilot just for a creative partner, but also to then take the efficiency and build me a table and a doc or create a slide deck where I'm able to get exactly what I'd want with some 80-20, as you said. Give me some, I adapt, I change, put in my own language, take my notes, use my own notes and my own things to bounce back and forth. But that efficiency on which I can create multiple areas for students to engage or express their understanding
quickly
or to represent the topic. If I had to do that on my own, it just wouldn't. There's not enough hours in the day. Of course, people say, well, I can just go into AI and it can create me a lesson plan.
Sure.
You can go to Teachers Pay Teachers and buy a lesson plan.
Yeah, fair point.
Right. And I'm just going to be honest, we're just saying there's people that do that. There's people that go in, go to Teachers Pay Teachers, buy something for $2.99, comes in a pretty little fancy PDF. They run, 150 copies of it for their students, and then they give that lesson. So, going in and taking an AI-generated lesson, there's no difference in that. But where the difference comes for those educators that are stepping, looking at really providing more opportunities to meet students where they're at, getting them where they need to be, using their own content, their own knowledge of students, and being able to, say, outsource some of the building of it and the creative process of it through AI is, I think, are really seeing better results. With how they're engaging their students, how they're interacting with their students, how they're developing inclusive learning environments, and then also how they're analyzing the data from formative assessments that come in. AI does a great job with that, too.
It absolutely does. And I think when generative AI and everything, it's evolved since, we were speaking to the chief innovative officer last year. Just less than a year ago, we look at how quickly AI has adapted. And when it first really started to come onto the scene, like I talked about, there's fear and FOMO, right? And which one are you? What defines you? And when I say the fear component is exactly what you mentioned. People, right away, cheating on assignments, creating those fake songs, audio scams, and so much more. And yet for learning and teaching, the benefits are starting to pop up more and more recently, and there's been more adopters, and there's more people on the FOMO side are starting to get to that point versus where we had, that issue, in what people's perspective and optics were. They didn't know how to handle it, and now they're seeing how the evolution of AI and learning, and how you said it. It's been always a one-size-fits-all approach where students follow the predetermined curriculum with little room for individual differences. And now we know our students and how drastic their backgrounds are and how every day can be different. And now with the advancement of the technology, these AI-powered learning tools to make things really shift the paradigm to personalized learning experiences without burnout for the teacher.
And I think that's the big thing.
That's the key.
Without burnout. AI is doing a lot of that lifting. Even going back to what we just talked about with Screencastify.
Right.
The fact that I can run auto captioning on an instructional video that I create. So maybe I record a 5 to 7 minute mini lesson on an important topic, and then immediately I can take that video and run captioning, and then students that need translations of that, they can read the captioning. That is no lift on my part. That's like 30 seconds of AI creating that after I put in the work to create the video. Yeah. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Right? And I think even the translation features that are built into a lot of these different, like Brisk has a lot of translation features into it. A lot of these
Diffit, all of them. Yeah, they have a lot
all
of
of
them.
that. You can provide these resources, which I think are beneficial.
Absolutely. You talk, I mean, when we talk about, we both have young kids.
Yeah.
The oldest is in 7th grade, experiencing middle school for me, right? And you talk about those personalized learning experiences. And I'm starting to see stuff come home, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but I don't know how much it's been personalized, because whether it's a fear or FOMO or just the unknown in every district, you got to check with tech directors and rules and regulation and education law and obviously Board of Ed policies. So it's a matter of stop trying to fit into the standardized box, because there is no standardized box anymore,
Right.
because of the way our kids are growing up and learning. And all these AI tools themselves, they're designed to cater not only to help the teacher, but to the individual needs of students, like you just mentioned with Screencastify, making it possible for them to learn in an adaptive way that suits them best. So whether it's a visual aid versus an audio, like you just said, right? A language, translation. We have a lot of ELL learners, in certain districts have a higher population, but those recommendations, we can make sure that students are ensuring they're getting the best educational experience in their system.
Right. Even changing the lexile level of not only something on the web, but your instructional materials that you have already, to be able to differentiate in that. We know students learn differently. There's a lot of audio learners out there. There's a lot of visual learners out there. There's being able to take one of your lessons and then have the AI look at your lesson and generate a slide deck off of your lesson, complete with images that sometimes are really good, sometimes are not.
Right.
You can change,
Yeah.
but it's doing that lift for you.
The heavy lift is done.
So you're then being able to adapt it and use these different things in less time. It's really something we have to think of. It's like thinking of it as a calculator. I can punch in the buttons and it's going to do the calculations. I can guide AI and it's going to build that stuff with me, not for me. And I think that's important if teachers start looking at it for efficiency, for that person to do the lifting. I mean, I can come up with a great mini lesson and come up with all these different ideas to go through and reach my students. But then I'd have to create the slide deck to introduce the mini lesson. I'd have to create the Google Docs that students can interact with or collaborate and create all of that. And then I'd have to
assign it 5 times in Google Classroom to the different groups, which is now better, right?
Right. But then I'd have to then look at the way I'm grouping students. And then some students might need different depth of knowledge questionings on what they're doing. And I could sit there and I know what all needs to be done and I can do it. But if I'm creating that, for a 35-minute period, I mean, I think my workload to build it is hours. I mean, come on, is hours, where I can cut that workload into learning how to use the generative AI to produce a lot of these materials for me. So I'm now then freeing up my time, not only for my personal well-being, but also then I'm not just, shooting worksheets out to my students.
Exactly.
I'm actually interacting with them more.
And that's that personalized experience, and you will not experience as much burnout. That's the key. When you're trying to deliver so much for your students on a daily basis and really give them individual learning profiles or even small group work, or what, like Dan just mentioned, this will help revolutionize all learning environments, because those AI learning tools have those transformative benefits where it will promote the personalized learning experience. It'll make you more efficient so you don't have burnout. And it'll promote student engagement and motivation. I mean, how often do we see, using Go Guardian and the kids are off task? So if it's something that's going to motivate them and engage them, if we look at AI that way, the potential for AI-powered learning tools is immense, and the future of education is bright and exciting, and employers are going to want it. I mean, we're seeing it. Look at they're all adapting to it. I would be shocked if in the interview process they're not saying, how have you utilized AI in a past job or in your schooling or in your personal life? And I think everybody, I except for the fear, which is now becoming a smaller number. I think everybody's using AI, because we want it. I still think back to our interview where he said you're going to wake up and all your emails are going to be drafted automatically with the responses because it's learning. The machine learning is learning how you speak to someone and what you're going to do or which ones will be automatically deleted. Like I'm waiting to see when that comes. Maybe a year from now when we talk again, it will. But I'm excited to see where it goes. But you have to kind of self-evaluate. Am I fear or am I FOMO?
I just think one more thing on this topic as we go through. The landscape of education is always changing, and what the expectations, what curriculum you're following, what their new things they're changing about state exams like Regents exams. Social studies has changed the way it's done. It's doing its Regents exams. There's different rubrics. There's different criteria. We've also seen our changes in the sciences.
It's evolving.
It's evolving. And then so when you're looking at that help for transitioning into a new set of standards, a new set of expectations, new rubrics, new things that are coming down from the state with very little support, as it always is, you can look at that AI Copilot is taking and adapting and be like, how does this align with this? And then have it set you along your path so you can start really taking your curriculum and making sure that it is representative of the expectations that are there coming down from wherever it is. To sit there and do that on your own is quite a big undertaking. To sit there with your colleagues on a superintendent's conference day and looking at all your stuff and transitioning is hard, especially when you don't have all the knowledge of what the new stuff is. I mean, but having that machine learning go ahead and help you along that way, it's a good time saver for especially crunching data and looking at it and comparing. So I think we really got to look at it as that tool that, it's like when calculators first came out, like, wow, look what it can do. Yep. When the Google search engine first came out, it revolutionized everything. And those people that are, skeptical of AI, which, I think we all have a level of skepticism, I'm pretty sure they still use Google search, right?
Yeah.
So, it's one of those, fear or FOMO, whatever it is, it's there. And you can create your own personal ethics around it, which is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to wrap this up and put a bow on it, the only thing I think you need is an unshakable belief in yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what you're doing. So you have that unshakable belief in yourself and how you want to utilize those AI tools as an educator. That is the key component. So we will be talking to you again soon. Dan, any other final thoughts?
No, happy to be back at it. And then again, Andrew mentioned we'll be at Nicegate, so we'll have a number of
lots coming out.
Lots coming out for hopefully it'll reach a large portion of our listeners and be beneficial in one way. But I'm really excited because we'll be podcasting a lot from up there.
Yeah, we are excited. We're back. So once again, thank you for all your support. Listen on all the platforms, leaving us those reviews. Hit the the thumbs up on YouTube. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please reach out. Tech hard, work smart, live an adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at Nicola Tech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.